gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
It is good!
Gamecock fans, welcome home.
See how it goes, but we'll be ready to go.
It's time to root.
Let's go, Carolina! It's gone! Touchdown! What a hit! He baked it in! Can you believe it? Gamecocks have won this game!
Here are your hosts, J.C. Sherber.
Oh, watch him celebrate now!
Phil Molinex.
My wife doesn't like hanging around losers.
And Jamie Bradford.
I'm going to tell him, you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
All right, greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home. Inside the Gamecocks, the show live from the Signorama Studios, the preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics and built by the Barndo Co., the barndominiumco.com. That's where you'll go to build your dream house. I tell you every day, if you plan on building a home anytime in the future, these folks do it differently than the rest of the world, and they're one of the U.S.'s best builders for a reason. I promise you that. They're Gamecock owned and operated as low as $160 per square foot in the Carolinas, in Georgia, or in Tennessee. The barndominiumco.com, or as we call them around here, the Barndo Co. JC, JB, and Phil until 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll be joined in less than a half hour by Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. And for those upset with Ben Portnoy's column on attendance in the state, he'll be here to discuss that at 12:05 this afternoon from camp, as a matter of fact, and on campus at Carolina, as lots of talented football players, of course, have made their way to the Midlands to try to show off and show out for Shane Beamer and his staff. But Portnoy will show up in an hour on our program and talk about that. We'll also talk to him about the schedule that was released yesterday. We have plenty of thoughts on it. Throughout the show, we're going to look back on some things that haven't happened in a while with video. I'm sure many of you will remember a lot of these moments. The 2008 LSU South Carolina game in Williams-Brice is the last time the Tigers came to town. They will be coming to town next year. That's 16 years. They're in the same league. It's ridiculous. So they'll be in Columbia next year. We'll also take a look back at the night that Sandstorm was born in Williams-Brice. Ole Miss, fourth in the country. Jevin Sneed, they come to town. They get upset by Steve Spurrier's Gamecocks. That very same year, South Carolina in a top 25 matchup in T-Town against second-ranked Alabama. So we'll get all that in, and we'll have some video up, and we'll be able to kind of have a little roundtable discussion over all of that. On top of all of that, guys, the U.S. Open is underway, and I've got to imagine we're going to have plenty of soundbite coming from the left coast this week out in L.A., where the event is being played because of the merger that was announced last week, pretty much out of nowhere. So we'll kind of monitor the scoreboard there right now. Jacob Solomon and a few others are at 1 under. Remember, it's early because they're out west. There's only a couple of guys through 5 holes of play. So nighttime golf is one of my favorite things in the world to watch, and we'll get to do that. There's also some movement going on with Carolina baseball. John Whittle put a big nugget on the Big Spur last night, and I'll back up his claims. Carolina is very much in the mix with a freshman All-American transferring within the league. Also transferring within the league is Michael Braswell. He has announced now that he's headed to LSU. LSU is playing for a national championship in the College World Series. So, yeah, that loss for South Carolina, it certainly looks like one of the best teams in the country is happy to scoop them up, and they have done it down in Baton Rouge. So some notes and stuff like that to pass along throughout the afternoon. But I'll shut up now and pass it over to Phil and JC, guys. Yeah, some surprises last night, I'd say. I did not see that at all. My intel did not. JC, you and I texted yesterday afternoon, and we had spoken with somebody who gave us pretty thorough intel that said Georgia is off. And this was after we came off the air. So we were expecting that. No way was I expecting to not see the Gators or the Vols.
Yeah, I mean, before I put that up on the Big Spur yesterday, I was talking to one of my contacts and then another one, and they both were like, "My God." They were like, "We got to play as Alabama, Oklahoma, and then Florida and Tennessee and Georgia." I mean, so I think it came as a surprise to a lot of folks, including a contact, close to the administration side of things I talked to earlier today. I think the SEC just didn't tell anybody. Now, it was out before the release, about an hour or so. I mean, but these guys didn't get much of a heads up. Just looking at it from a South Carolina standpoint, here's what I think the logic was, okay? Because, this schedule, South Carolina plays one team that's located in the Eastern time zone in the conference, Kentucky. And Kentucky's going to be the permanent opponent. A contact I spoke with today doesn't necessarily think they're going to go to 9 in 2025. Thinks they'll stay at 8 for a while. So Kentucky's the permanent opponent. So you want to keep that intact, right? Even though this is kind of a one-off. I think when they looked at Carolina and maybe even what the discussion was on Carolina's end was, playing some games that have not been played in a while. And you mentioned that. Ole Miss is coming to Columbia for the first time since 2009. That's a long time. Alabama gets to host the Gamecocks for the first time since 2009. LSU was scheduled to come in 2015, but remember the flood moved that game to Baton Rouge. And so the Gamecocks have played down there 3 straight times, 2012, 2015, and 2020. So the LSU's coming to town for the first time since 2008. Which is a close ball game, 24-17. Heartbreaking. Steven, that's the one where Steven Garcia ran into the ref.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. And you'll see that soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they focused on that. I think whether we understand it and appreciate it or not, and this is just my theory, they kept the trophy games.
That was one of my first notices here. They did not mess with the former cross-divisional permanents that much for anybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the Bonham Trophy is still there with A&M, and the Columbia Mayor's Cup is still there with Missouri. And then I think, with the reason the Gamecocks got Vanderbilt is because they have Alabama and LSU. And I do think they tried, even though there are some teams that I feel got screwed. Go look at Florida's 2024 schedule, then think about the fact that if they go 6-6 this year, that's going to be a huge year for Billy Napier. It's unbelievable. They play Miami, Florida State, and UCF in the non-conference. Yeah. Keep in mind, UCF is now Power 5. Plus, you name the school. Florida's 20. If there's one team I look at besides Vanderbilt, because I do think Vanderbilt got screwed a little bit. Well, it's Florida. Yeah. If there's a team that got off lightly, I think it's Texas. I hope that's not a precedent that we're setting here in the SEC. So Florida plays. Now they do have
hold on. You think Texas got off lightly?
Compared to some other schools, yeah, I think, but I also think, and I'll go through. Yeah, Florida, they play Miami and UCF are at home. They play Georgia and Jacksonville. They play at Florida State. Here are their other games, home games. Kentucky, that's fine. They should be able to handle Kentucky at home traditionally. LSU, who they always play. Ole Miss is coming to the Swamp, and then A&M's coming to the Swamp. Then they go at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, and at Texas.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here got off lightly. I just think this is what it is now. It just is what it is. Look around.
It's the SEC. You got to get used to it. But as far as Texas goes, they have the neutral site game against Oklahoma. They're at Arkansas, a traditional rival. They're at A&M, a traditional rival. At home, they play Florida, Georgia, but Kentucky and Mississippi State, and then at Vanderbilt. Now, they do have a non-con against Michigan at the Big House that year. But, so I don't know. I mean, it seemed that way with Texas, but maybe, I personally think no matter who Texas drew, it's going to be tough for that program to transition. I like where Oklahoma's at a little bit better. Vanderbilt, who has Virginia Tech, SMU, and at Georgia State in the non-conference, they're at Auburn, at Kentucky, at LSU, at Missouri. And at home, they play Bama, the Gamecocks, Tennessee, and Texas. I mean, 2024 is a long way off, but if they're going to get a home conference win, I think Carolina's probably what they should circle because, my God, Bama, Tennessee, and now look, they'll beat Tennessee every now and then. We know that, but that's a lot of brand names coming to Nashville. But all in all, look, it's a different schedule that Carolina's got, but I think the fans, if there's one thing I've noticed, Gamecock fans like something a little bit new. They don't like the same old, same old. They've been playing Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia for 33 years. You hate seeing the Georgia game go away because that main game means a lot because with the exception of the 2 years prior to joining the SEC, they played every single season. So even fans from the Joe Mo era remember the Georgia series. They played Georgia outside of Clemson more than any other school. So you hate to see it, but you also kind of look at it and go, well, it's probably pretty good. You don't have to play Alabama, Oklahoma, LSU, and Georgia. I think those perennial college football playoff teams, it's something else. But, Gamecock fans like something new. Look at the Gator Bowl this year. That's the largest bowl crowd. An opponent had something to do with it, but it also had to do with, hey, he hadn't been to Jacksonville since 87. I still remember the 2018 Carolina Ole Miss game, which looking back on it was a hell of a ball game.
That was a great game.
48-24, Jake Bentley led them back.
No defense, but
that's the first time they've been to Ole Miss since 08, 10 years. Carolina took 5,000-6,000 fans out there. It gets – I understand when you're talking about going someplace every other year for 30 years, it gets old. Maybe we could skip the trip to Knoxville this year, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't mind having some new blood on the schedule. I think at home, too, those games are intriguing. And I think, if you're an LSU or Ole Miss fan, coming into town, I think that, you sort of look at it and go, well, we ain't been to Columbia in a while. Let's roll. And then Carolina hadn't been to Bama in a while. And that place, since they were there last,
it's totally
has become a cathedral, of college football. So I think it's all right. I'm looking forward to going to Oklahoma. I've never been to the state of Oklahoma. And Norman is, for those of you who don't know, Norman is basically Oklahoma City. It's 17 miles south. It's a suburb, but it's
like Somerville to Charleston, basically.
You fly into OKC, and it's all good. Oklahoma City's a big city, in case you're wondering if you have to get on a puddle jumper or a pack of gum with wings and fly in there. I stole that from Rob, by the way.
It's a 15-hour drive from here at home.
That's
I looked it up yesterday.
Phil, if we leave on Wednesday, I'll pick you up and leave Wednesday.
That's right.
And we could get there by Thursday and then come back on Tuesday.
It's 11 from Chi-Town, so it's not –
that's a flight.
It's just as far.
Tuscaloosa is a drive. That's a flight. Yeah, so JC, you said something earlier though. You brought up the rest of Florida's schedule. Phil, I think now reality is about to set in, and I foresee a lot of big time non-conference games going away in the future.
Yeah, I mean, even with this 8-game schedule that so many are panning. It's like when you look at it, that was my initial reaction yesterday is get ready because your first multiple loss national champion is right around the corner with a setup like this.
Well, I agree.
12-seed playoff too.
I think there's going to be 9 and 3 12 seeds out of the SEC.
Yeah.
I don't see because I guess what I'm getting at here too is now that you're doing away with divisions and you're going to whatever they're going to go to, whether it's a 9-game schedule, which I think eventually they're going to get there, or it's an 8-game schedule in the 1-7 model. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're crisscrossing the league And every year you're going to draw a handful of the best teams in the conference, which means the best teams in the country. And I was hoping it wouldn't happen, but guys, Phil, I don't see any way that teams like Florida, probably South Carolina, Alabama, so on and so forth, continue to schedule the Miamis, the Wisconsins. I think Bama's got Wisconsin coming up. Carolina's got Miami, NC State, North Carolina all on the schedule. I see a lot of that going away with the reality of what this is going to look like setting in, because I think a lot of the conversation that's been had on TV over the last 16 hours is just manufactured BS. Like, well, what schedule is more difficult than this one? And this one's less. They're all hard. I haven't looked at one of them and thought, well, they got it off easy, because we know a lot of these teams that are good every year. And then a lot of these teams are good most years. And then a lot of these teams are good some years. And you don't ever know when you're going to, like, I can tell you right now, when the schedules came out back in 8, 9, 10, whatever, for 11, 12, and 13, nobody saw South Carolina winning 11 games a year back then, but they sure started kicking some ass. So
yeah,
you just don't know in this league.
That's why I'm glad. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, and until we pay more than just lip service to strength of schedule and over, win watching, then yeah, you're going to see those games go away. Because as much as the narrative is around, well, your strength of schedule is very important, we still see, even in the limited 14 playoff, where wins are what matters most. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I've been on that.
Or TCU wouldn't have been in it this year, period.
No,
I mean,
no
because
doubt.
Bama was a better team. I mean, I put them on a neutral field. I'd say they win 9.5 times out of 10.
Yeah, Jeremy points out, hey, Jeremy, what's up, man? He said that LSU's got SoCal. Wait, LSU plays SoCal and LSU. Well, that's not possible. They can't play themselves. But somebody is if it is LSU, they got Southern California in 24. Yeah, why would you even play that game?
It's already been scheduled. It's already but see, and all right. So I'm going to say something now as it relates to Carolina. Do not expect the Gamecocks to get out of the Chick-fil-A kickoff in 2025.
No, I don't expect that. No.
They've waited 30 years to get in there, and the payout for those neutral site games, which is probably why, against the better wishes sometimes of the fans, that they play them there.
Oh, I see what Jeremy's saying here. LSU next year, guys. You mentioned Florida. LSU has both Southern Cal and UCLA on their 24 schedule. What are they doing?
Well, SoCal is in Vegas. It's a neutral site game on Sunday night, Labor Day.
So what?
And
who cares?
And look, LSU's the home team, obviously, because USC will be in or Southern Cal will be in the Big Ten then, and that's a ESPN game. So good for the SEC's networks. But don't expect the Gamecocks to buy out of that Virginia Tech game. Number one, it's a payout of $5.3 million plus to play in it. Yeah, and we talk about the Charlotte game sometimes, and I agree those things have kind of run its course. Looking forward to the one this year, certainly. But those are why those tickets are high, because they're paying out the two schools to come give up a home game and play there. And so it makes good financial sense. Plus, I don't think anybody needs to be scared of Virginia Tech for a while. And Carolina will sell it out. I mean, that's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's amazing. But yeah, and see, I think for years now, guys, these guys have been
Phil, send them your routing number.
Some of these guys have these teams have been scheduling up.
No, wire him $5,000, man. Give him the $10,000 bill.
Yeah, here, hold on.
Ace needs help. Everybody stop what you're doing.
Ace, just grab this right off your screen, man. And
Ace, here's our contribution to you.
There you go.
Omar Ace Chan.
Yeah, there you
go. Yeah, Ace needs help.
Persecuted by brain control. Hey, man, you got to put it up and show everybody what's going on. You got to put up the request.
If you can't see it,
Ace is having trouble.
So everybody email Ace Chan. So
Yeah,
get
send him all
his
your banking
Venmo.
info. Yeah. Sorry to hear that, Ace.
I'm sorry.
Tough draw for you, man.
I would suggest reaching out to the United States government.
How do you find our show?
Well, they must air it in
no bots on Facebook
in China
in a Chinese prison. That's our largest.
Hey, Ace, I'm
audience.
damn sure not going to send you anything unless you like or love what it is you're watching. You got to share it a couple times. I'll follow up with you. Let's see.
Yeah, get you $20.
Speak out against the government of China.
How much is $20 in China? 2,000.
That $10,000 bill.
It's probably less than
It's
that.
10,000. Yeah, you definitely have that covered to you. So don't worry about it.
A little off track there, but guys, we got to help out Ace if we can. So there's Ace Chan 1213 at gmail.com.
Quantrell says Virginia Tech will be a D2 school by then.
See, that game doesn't bother me, and I like that. And I don't think the way Carolina schedules the extra games, I don't think that those are going to go away even moving forward. Now, I do have a question now is with this release last night, is this the 1-7 model, or is this just a random 8 to get us through? Yeah,
right.
this is just pick 8 and go.
I was talking on the air in Tuscaloosa and also Nashville earlier about this, and it's a one-off. Now, from what I was told today, Howard says NC State won't go away because Tanner loves playing in Charlotte. Well, all right, here's another one thing Tanner gets blamed when it's not.
Yeah. By the way, they're really good in Charlotte for anybody that's wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
They've lost twice. They've won 5
Virginia
times.
is not the only game that was played there,
just to kind of clarify, though, there are no more Charlotte games scheduled after this year. That NC State series and the North Carolina series at the end of this decade are both home and home. So you're going to Raleigh and Columbia and Chapel Hill and Columbia. Yeah, Miami is a home and home in Miami and here, which I think most fans
to those, though, JC.
I think looking at it, I don't know. What Miami, for example,
from a recruiting standpoint, it makes sense.
They suck right now.
All right, how about this one? Like you've got. I mean, they go to App State down the road. Why? They're not going to play that game.
I'd be completely shocked if they played that game.
That's still number one to get rid of for me. Look good, just toss it.
And by that time, by the 2030s or whatever, Carolina will have a lot of, I think, additional revenue coming in.
By the 2030s, Ohio State's going to be in the SEC in Michigan.
Yeah, you never know. App State might be in the SEC team.
We're talking years in advance, but Howard, just to say. Just to make sure NC State's not scheduled. Nothing is scheduled for unless Carolina goes back to the Mayonnaise Bowl. Nothing is scheduled in Charlotte right now. Doesn't mean something can't pop up. And quite frankly, if a Notre Dame or Ohio State or a big time opponent wanted to play Carolina in Charlotte, I don't know that you turn that stage down. Maybe you do. I mean, I don't know, but Steve Spurrier turned down a lot of games, right? When he first got here, Virginia Tech wanted a home and home. He's like, "No, we're not gonna play y'all." And then, thank God, because the Will Muschamp era in 2016 could have easily started in Orlando against Florida State because they wanted that. And Spurrier, because that was right after Jimbo won the national championship. He's like, I don't think we'll quite have our team to go do that in Orlando. So they got Ole Miss instead. And, of course, Gamecocks started at Vanderbilt. But they've turned down stuff like that before. I don't think you ever turn down the thing in Atlanta because it's such a big stage. Now you can have recruits come and make unofficial visits to those neutral site games. Atlanta's a hotbed. The Chick-fil-A people, for whatever reason, have been averse to taking the Gamecocks. They've really not played in Atlanta very much at all through the years, unless it's been at Georgia Tech. I don't think you get rid of that. And then the opponent's manageable. Now, this Miami home and home, I would love to play if they're back and the league goes to 9 games, I think you maybe see if you can get out of it. So I'm just not. That would be the one I would look at. If I were the Gamecocks, I I don't think if you're South Carolina, you ever want to shy away from playing NC State or North Carolina. But I can see the logic if it gets too hairy to say, hey, look, we need to lighten this thing up a bit.
When were they supposed to go to Miami? I know that Miami's coming to town on the 26th, but
27.
In 26.
26, 27?
Yep.
No.
Yeah, but 27 has East Carolina, App State. Oh, no. There's Miami. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I got it. So they haven't said a date for that. Just TBA. I don't know. I know this. We need to step aside because Chris Phillips is due in next, and certainly want to get his thoughts on this and wrap up baseball season with him as well. Remember, Ben Portnoy will join us at the top of the 12 o'clock hour today to discuss his column in the state newspaper about attendance at Carolina. A lot of questions being asked about that. Get his thoughts on the schedule as well. And we'll take a look back at 3 games that haven't happened in a long time. You'll get to watch them with us and fuss and discuss. LSU and Ole Miss in Columbia back in 08 and 09. South Carolina in T-Town in 09 as well, where they'll go next year. So everybody hang tight. God, 2024, South Carolina is at Alabama and at Oklahoma. Who'd have ever thunk it? Inside the Gamecocks, the show painted garnet and black by a couple of painters. LetMePaintSomething.com. If you're in South Carolina, Georgia, anywhere in those borders, they will come to you and paint anything, including your dog or cat. We'll be right back.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The real estate market has changed dramatically from just a year ago. Rates, supply, demand, all of your traditional factors are in a transition phase. That's why if you or someone you know are considering making a move in the low country, contact me, JB, at Coast to Coast Realty. I work with an outstanding support cast of attorneys, lenders, inspectors, insurance agents, and more, all of whom are valuable in helping find a way for you to comfortably make your real estate decision. That's right. Call me, JB, your low country real estate broadcaster. Building your dream home is often just that, a dream. And sometimes a nightmare. But at the Barn Dough Company, they commit to quality and build without sacrifice. Customization, open floor plans, limitless flooring options, maintenance-free and easy installation perks, and affordability are just a few reasons why they've been named one of the best builders in the U.S. Believe in your dreams. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Barn Dough Company. Gamecock owned. Gamecock operated.
Traveling to cheer on the Gamecocks? Reserve your hotel stay with Fan Plans. Your booking supports inside the Gamecocks and the Big Spur, plus you still earn your hotel loyalty points. Visit fanplans.com/inside the Gamecocks.
What's up, Gamecock Nation? This is Jakar Moore from the DMV, and you are listening to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show. Sorry, we've been a little behind the scenes stuff.
Sorry about that.
Going as fast as possible. Yeah. No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good. But do need to pass along the news that has been confirmed, Chris. And the family has acknowledged it correctly. No,
Chris knows this. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
You know what's
up, Chris? Tell us what we need to know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's already out there. His brother-in-law did say something on social media, so was kind of hesitant to bring it to light just out of respect for the family. But I did talk with, I was with Brad Lawing a couple of weeks ago in his home, and we had a great conversation, as we always did. But shot him a text because I heard the rumor and just said, "Hey, Coach, wanting to check on you. Let me know you're all right." And his wife reached out and said that middle of the night last night, Brad Lawing did pass. So Brad Lawing no longer with us, and that's one of those. I mean, I just found out about 10 minutes ago, so that's one of those kind of stop you where you are type of moments. And somebody really significant, not just in the college football, or not just in the Gamecock community, but also the college football community. And if you ever met Brad, just an incredible person, incredible human being. His wife's an incredible lady as well. And somebody that really, welcomed me like family. I mean, really, truly. I mean, he didn't have to talk to me. I mean, this guy's a living legend, I think, to most of us for what he did at Carolina. And again, throughout college football, we're talking about a guy that coached with the likes of Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier and, amongst others. And welcomed me literally into his home. And, it's just tragic news to start us on this Thursday. And so it's not news I, want to lead the show with, but again, I think it's already out there and it's being confirmed and everything. And it is 110% confirmed that Coach Lawing is no longer with us. So it's
that's my fault. I got up. I didn't read the private chat before I asked you about it. I just knew you knew him, and I didn't want to dump something. I mean, I didn't even read that you had gone back and forth. So I'm sorry. My bad.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I mean, it's one of those things. Like I said, I wasn't going to say anything until the family put it out there, but I'm actually seeing his brother-in-law tweeted. And I'm not saying his brother-in-law has like some big social media presence, but his brother-in-law did put it out there publicly that, my brother-in-law, Brad Lawing, passed away last night. So I think it's kind of one of those things where, unfortunately, that's kind of how probably one of these things is going to get discovered or found out if somebody kind of leaks it on social media. Heck, somebody sent me a screenshot this morning from the Big Spur board about it. So I didn't want to believe it. And it's why I texted Brad. And, it's just really, it's heartbreaking. It really is. Because like I said, I was sitting down with him at his house and Coach Lawing wasn't in, the best of health, but I mean, he was in great spirits as always, but it's just terrible. Just terrible news. Terrible news.
He's a guy, there's every time you get a successful run in any sport, especially in college, there's always a group of guys that are always beloved forever. And clearly Coach Spurrier is a guy that people around here are going to love forever and ever and ever because of what he did at South Carolina. But when you look under that tree of the coaches that came along, Brad Lawing and G.A. Mangus are really the two names that always rise to the top. I know that probably part of that too, Chris, I think, is because like I've had G.A. on my shows a ton of times. You've had Brad on yours a lot. I know that before I joined Inside the Gamecocks, GA had joined JC and Phil here, and they've been very willing and open to talk to the Carolina community, but South Carolina never left them. Like they didn't just come coach here and then move on to greener pastures like a lot of guys do. Like they are fans of the Gamecocks program and they care deeply about it. And I think that's one of the things that really made Brad a big piece of people's lives. And it's just really sad to hear that. Well, he's an outstanding coach, but as you said, what a great man.
And a great storyteller too. And you mentioned JB. I mean, again, he coached all over the place. I mean, it's one of the coolest things. And I would still say that, he had the coolest man cave probably of anybody in the state of South Carolina, because you just talk about, I mean, we have pictures and memorabilia. Like he had the actual stuff, you know what I mean? Like being on the field and from these players. And, one of the coolest things, he had all the helmets of everywhere he had coached, starting in Appalachian State way back in the, early 80s or something like that. So, he was at North Carolina under Mac Brown. He was at Carolina in the 90s, which one of the coolest pieces, he has an actual on-field worn helmet from like 1994, the beautiful garnet helmet with the white circle, which is so cool. But I mean, Coached a lot of different places. I mean, went to Florida State. They set the sack record there in one of his last years. He coached so many NFL draft picks and first rounders. But when you talk to him about South Carolina specifically, man, you could really tell again the love and the passion that he had for the Gamecocks and Gamecock Nation. And he bought a house out on Lake Murray. And I mean, I think there's a reason he planted his roots here because he just fell in love with the place, similar to like many do when they come coach here, I feel like. So, Brad Lowing was one of those guys, man. I mean, there's a reason why he was embraced by the community the way he was and, had 2 separate stints at Carolina. So a lot of his coaching career was at USC. But, he was Gamecock through and through. And I would say he loved the university as much as anybody else.
Well,
I'll be interested.
Brad came in '89 with Sparky. From App State as a young coach. Lasted his whole tenure and lasted the whole Brad Scott era as well. Lou came in and he went to Michigan State with Saban, I think. Ended up Saban took nobody with him from Michigan State to LSU. Ended up back in North Carolina for a spell, and then Spurrier hired him in 2006, and he coached some of the greatest defensive lines collectively in program history, and probably coached. If you ranked all the defensive linemen that have played here, he's probably got most of the top 10.
Mm-hmm. And he had a lot to do with getting Marcus Lattimore to campus too. In case people.
Great recruiter, knew how to sell the university.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the recruiting stories he would tell were just. I mean, again, great storyteller, but it was always funny. It was always funny hearing him talk about like the realities of recruiting behind the scenes. And, we were talking about NIL and portal, and he's just talking about, back in the day, Billy Napier was at Clemson. And I remember walking in, he's talking to Kelsey Quarles when he's not supposed to. And he's like, I remember having a talk with Napier. He's like, if I catch you doing this shit again, I'm going to report you to the NCAA. It was like, but it was one of those things where like they knew they were they were bending the rules, but they were like, as long as you don't piss in my yard, I'm not going to piss in your yard. But I mean, it's been happening forever, as we all know. But yeah, it's the stories were just crazy.
I think Chris too, and I'm sure you learned this from the time you spent with him. I think one of the things that made Brad an elite recruiter is he was just going to. You asked him a question, you're going to get an answer. And like when you walked out there on the practice field, I saw somebody said this, Ed said it here in our chat box, and I've seen him in action in practice as well, Coach Lawing. Yeah, you don't cut corners when he's on your rear end. And that like there's such a schmoozy side sometimes to coaches. There was no schmoozy side with him. Black and white. Here it is. This is it. You going to do it or you're not going to do it. You want to play here? You don't want to play here. And I think a lot of people really took to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a testament to that, JB, is the story that he told me so many times that we publicized was the Devin Taylor story, where we all remember Devin Taylor. I mean, a physical specimen, right? This guy's, 6'7", 6'8", like, I mean, just a massive human being. And he mentioned to me that he brought him to, I think his mother's name was Sylvia. He said, Sylvia, I need you to bring Devin to the stadium tomorrow. And he was planning on offering him, but he's like, I just need to see something, bring him to the stadium for a workout, if you will. And the workout consisted of this. And Brad told me, he said, listen, I'm not going to run you through drills. All I want to do is this. I'm going to throw my hands up, and I want you to give me your best pass rush move, whatever that move is. And Brad said he cocked back and punched him as hard as he could square in the chest because he wanted to see, because Devin was a very passive, quiet, timid kind of kid. Like, he's this physical specimen, but he's like, I need to see sort of his flight or fight response. Like, does he have what it takes to be a Gamecock? And he said Devin Taylor's eyes just turned red. And he's like, Chris, I thought he was going to whoop my ass. I mean, I really thought he was about to beat my ass. And he said he stopped. He said, Devin, we're going to give you a scholarship. We want you here at Carolina. He's like, I just wanted to see if you had that in you. So it's kind of like you would probably never hear that kind of story today. But Brad Lowing's tactics while they were unorthodox, there's no question how they worked. And I mean, listening to that man talk about pass rush and technique and the pain points on body and how to use that, and hearing him detail like the 2012 Clemson game when Jadeveon Clowney had 4.5 sacks and and knowing what the center's doing and how you're positioning and playing mind games. And it was something where it gave me, at least from the football side, just a great appreciation that it's nowhere near as simple as, all right, let's just line up and rush the quarterback. There's a science to the pass rush, really, truly. And, not to take it down a different path, but I think that's why we're so excited about, Travian Robertson, because he learned all these things under Brad Lawing. So, incredible.
This staff will pay tribute to him between Shane and Travian. They will.
Yeah. I hadn't talked to him since, we exchanged texts probably about a year ago, but I hadn't talked to him when the job was open. And I called just to pick his brain. And he said the guy that gave him the most trouble of the names that were out there was Clausen from Wake Forest. He said they gave Florida State trouble. Last time I saw him in person, and I just in the interest of full disclosure, I wasn't as close with him as you, Chris, or Keith Alsop. They were really good friends. But he was at my friend's condo before the 2018 Tennessee game. And we sat there and had many beers and talked about ball. And I love talking ball, and to pick his brain about it made me better at what I do. Even before, when I was evaluating talent, just to kind of learn through osmosis, whether it's through Keith or whatever, saying, hey, here's how he evaluates it. And D-line's probably my best position at evaluating if you look at my track record. But we talked about ball, and I'll never forget Fedora was at the end at North Carolina. And I'd never, there were names floating around for the job or whatever. He told me, Matt Brown's getting that job. I was like, what? And I didn't even repeat it. Sure enough, 2 months later, Mac Brown comes back to UNC. So, and I guess that makes sense because he coached with Mac back at App State and coached with Sparky Woods, who's on that staff at North Carolina and stuff. So he probably knew. But that was a big, beautiful sun-splashed afternoon at the Casa de Jernigan over there in the condos where Flint's family is. You know where it's at, Jamie. I didn't know you back then, but I just sat out there on that porch and talked to him for about hour and a half, just about this, that, or the other. And always had, and then he took the time to call me during the search and kind of lay things out, and always gave me a lot of insight there. So really gonna miss that guy. I think the world will miss that guy.
This is from Eric Kimry. Very saddened to hear the news of Brad Lawing passing away. Coach Lawing was a legend in the coaching profession. He could tell old ball stories with the best of them. Brad was one of the best and most beloved Gamecock assistant coaches of all time. I'm praying for his family. So there's going to be a lot of that over the next
I think he's the longest tenured assistant too. It wasn't consecutive years, but I mean, he was here 17 years. I think the number 2 in the modern era would be Steve Spurrier Jr., who was there for all 11 of his dad's seasons. But he hadn't been an assistant at Coach Carolina in the history of the program as long as Coach Lawing did. So I do believe there'll be a tribute. Shane was you mentioned Devin Taylor. Shane was his lead recruiter along with Brad Lawing in that class. So I'm sure they'll pay some tribute to him, especially with Travian on staff and stuff. And
I was going to say too, JC. Yeah, Brad loved Shane. I mean, he did. He loved Shane and had very high hopes for the program under Shane. So I mean, I think that speaks volumes as well. So
wouldn't mind seeing something permanent up in the building or something either about him.
Yeah,
just because he is the longest tenured guy.
I think the best tribute they can pay to Brad Lawing is that defensive line to go out and play their rear ends off like they used to. Brad Lawing. I'm just speculating here, Chris. You could probably speak on this a lot more than I could. I would assume that Brad Lawing could give a damn about stickers on the back of a helmet. He just wants to see you guys play well.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you want to pay tribute to Coach Lawing, man, go rush the quarterback and make his life hell for 4 quarters. Sacks. So, it's he had a lot of game, or he's got a lot of game balls in his man cave. But obviously some of his favorites were 35-7 against Georgia, 7-3 against NC State, and back in 2009. I mean, some of those great defensive 16-12 against Georgia 07, like some of those great defensive performances. I mean, he loved defense. He loved getting after the quarterback, and if you want to pay tribute to Brad Lawing, man, let's have us one hell of a year, and maybe we'll break the sack record. I don't know, but there are definitely ways to do it on the field for sure.
Well, Chris, this year they won't be playing Oklahoma. They will next year. Your thoughts on the 24 schedule?
Yeah, guys, I tell you, I think what stands out, not necessarily who's on the schedule, but who's not on the schedule? You know, a season with no Georgia, no Tennessee, no Florida. I mean, it's the first time the Gamecocks, and you guys can fill me in because I saw the stat everywhere. It's the first time the Gamecocks aren't playing the Dogs since 1991. Would that apply to Tennessee and Florida also? I mean, I don't remember years where they didn't play them. Is that the first time since 91 they're not playing all three? Or, I mean, it's either way.
They've played all three every year since.
Yeah, all three every year. Yeah, every year.
So, they played all three in 2020. So
yeah. So I mean, it's those three not being on there is just strange. You know what I mean? It is. I know we kind of have to get rid of the East and West thought process because there's no conferences anymore. But there's a very heavy SEC West type of flavor to this schedule. LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama. I mean, heck, even Missouri, right, who joined the league in 2012. That's still, it doesn't, like, I know they're an East opponent, SEC opponent, but they're still like one of the newer ones where it's like, Kentucky, Vandy, you like, I think that you drew those maybe at least kind of, I don't know about soften the schedule up, but I'm sure there's some others out there that would like to have those two, but they're both on the road, granted. But yeah, that matchup against Oklahoma, man, guys, I said it last night. It's just a shame we didn't get it this year with Spencer Rattler going to Norman, taking on his old team. But that'll be really cool with the storyline. Obviously, Shane Beamer, familiar with basically that entire roster. And the Gamecocks might get to face off against old Brent Venables once again, just this time as a head coach. So the 24 schedule is really, really interesting. We'll expand and talk more on our show today. But man, it's just no Georgia, Florida, or Tennessee. And I know Georgia, some people had their comments, well, why would you want to play Georgia? And it's just, and I know maybe the Dogs, for the Dogs, it's like the 7th best rivalry or 6th best for them. But like Carolina, Georgia's a rivalry, man. Like it's just one of those games, the border war that you look forward to every year. And I know this is the future. This is the SEC now. And I guess we'll see what happens in 25, but it's just weird. It's just weird, man, flat out not seeing them on the schedule. But, exciting. I mean, I think, guys, all in all, it sets up actually, it's weird to call a schedule with Alabama on it and LSU that it sets up well. But, I mean, when you look at some others, I mean, God, I'm sure Oklahoma would take South Carolina's schedule for sure. So, I mean, I think it's but the home slate is just so interesting, man. LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, and Mizzou. Like, you know what I mean? Where are the normal suspects at?
It's almost like, Chris, they looked and said, all right, we're going to keep they have a trophy. We're going to keep that game.
Right.
And then they said, well, who hadn't been to Columbia in a while? Well, LSU and Ole Miss hadn't been since 08 and 09. All right, there you go. There's your other two. Where hadn't Carolina been in a while? Alabama. And then they stop right there. They're like, all right, we'll stop right there. We'll give them Kentucky and Vandy, and then they'll get Oklahoma. That's probably the extent of the discussion. And look, Georgia is a very important game every year. So is Tennessee. I mean, Florida, there's a lot of history between the two schools. I don't know that if I had to cut one of those, I would probably cut the Gators just because I wouldn't call it a rivalry. I think that the two schools have a lot to share, a lot in common. They've had some big moments playing each other in all sports. But I would I hate to see Georgia go away, but I mean, I think, guys, this is the reality of the SEC now.
Well, you're going to get them every other year.
If they stay at 8, you're going to be playing everybody every other year anyway. Kentucky's going to be that permanent opponent. And I don't think, judging the intel I have, now don't listen to me on schedules because I was dead wrong yesterday. But based on the intel I have, if they had gone to 9, Georgia was not going to be a permanent either. So – I remember the 90 and 91 season, they didn't play Georgia, and probably good. They didn't play them those 2 years. But
Georgia was going to get Auburn, Florida, and Tennessee as their 3 permanent opponents, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's one of those things where you just got to get used to it. I think what's weird about it, Chris, is that South Carolina doesn't play but one team, Kentucky, located in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah.
As far as SEC schedule.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
I mean, it's a West heavy.
I mean, I'll tell you this from just the college football fan perspective, even the Gamecock perspective. Like, I'm excited for some different matchups. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, but yeah, just not seeing the Dogs or Tennessee or Florida's kind of weird. But to your point, this is just the reality, man. You have to embrace it. And, all in all, again, like as an SEC fan, as a college football fan, I'm so excited that Texas and OU are in the league and we're seeing some really fun matchups. And, we're not going to have to wait a decade to go to Tuscaloosa, right? We're not going to have to wait a decade to see some of these games. So, I mean, I think that's the positive, and I think that positive does outweigh the negative.
Yeah. They go to Clemson Oklahoma, and Alabama next year. I just,
hey.
This league, it just makes Nicole Auerbach's point the other day in her column just ridiculously stupid. Yeah. I mean, that's the most asinine thing I think I've read ever. Now that I've read it, so whatever.
Especially now that you see it too, man. That's the thing that really shocked me. It was like, we've all been conceptualizing this, bringing them into the league, thinking about what schedules are going to look like, but then you get to look at it, right? And you're like, damn.
yeah, exactly. Somebody follow up with Nicole and see what she thinks. Yeah. Sorry, we don't get Indiana and
you're gonna miss out that road game against Indiana, right? That's gonna be the
smell test.
According to some of these columns, it's like, Chris, that's like the tipping point for the Big Ten, because they play 9.
They play 9,
and I'm like, oh boy, that road game at Purdue, that's really gonna set you apart
9
from a team that
Rutgers every year.
I mean,
that's what I was gonna say. The only thing that really would improve your strength of schedule is having to go play Rutgers.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Vanderbilt in the SEC. I get it, but the strength of the rest of the league is it's insane. It's insane. What's on your show today, Chris? I know it starts at 6 minutes, so we got to let you
know. I mean, I don't think the Brad Lawing stuff was obviously planned, so we will spend a lot of time today paying respects to Coach Lawing and just probably reminiscing on great conversation. And we'll do that for a while, and then we'll do what probably Coach will want us to do, and that's talk some ball. So we'll break down the schedule and kind of go from there. So, but yeah, guys, I mean, you got to be able to pivot and make the adjustments and think on the fly. So that's kind of what we'll spend a lot of the show on today. But yeah, and then the big Braswell news. God, Braswell's going to LSU. Crazy. So I mean, I wish him nothing but the best. But transfer portal giveth and taketh. I mean, there it is.
Transfer portal will be givingeth more here soon to South Carolina. There's some good stuff in the works for those guys, and they're going to be okay. But well, hey, thanks for obviously popping on as usual. But great insight. I mean, as awful as the news is, great insight into your time with Coach Lawing, and rest in peace to one of the greats to ever do it.
Rest in peace indeed. JB, JC, Phil, I appreciate you guys, man.
Thanks.
Look forward to it next week.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. There you go. It is 11:55. Ben Portnoy is due to join us in 10 minutes on our program. So we are going to have to double up a break here, so we got to get him in. So we'll probably just step aside in just a minute, and then we'll grab him off of his column yesterday. I know some people don't want to hear that, but he is an actual journalist, and journalism is good when you have a live show. So he's going to be on. And we hope that you'll enjoy that. Some other news related to former Gamecocks. If you happen to miss this, hats off, hat tip, and anything in between to Kerry Tharp, who will be retiring at the end of this year after 2 decades in NASCAR. He is the president of Darlington Raceway, and Kerry, of course, used to be at the University of South Carolina. He's a Gamecock through and through, has great ties in the athletics department. 20 years, man. So hats off to Kerry, who left South Carolina in 2003, I think, JC, if my memory serves me correctly. And that's where guys like Steve Fink learned under Kerry. Yeah. Well, was it 2005?
Yeah, because Fink came from TCU with Hyman, with the messenger. By the way, Brad told me they used to call Eric Hyman the messenger. Because they had President Sorensen at the time who liked to meddle in athletics, so he came with the messenger. Finker did, just to tell you that, since we're honoring Brad today. But yeah, he came from TCU. And I think Kerry went to NASCAR maybe before that. Kerry was a McGee guy.
It was 03. Yeah, he was.
03, 04. Yeah, and so I don't know who was the interim SID or whatever, but. Maybe there was one, and then Hyman fired him and brought in Fink, but Fink's been here ever since.
Well, Fink's the best of the best, but I know Steve got a lot of nuggets and pointers from Kerry, and we've talked about that. But anyways, so hats off to Kerry Tharp. What a career! That's incredible stuff. All right, so we'll step aside and hit a timeout. It is 11:57. Ben Portnoy due up next, and then we will look back afterwards. Carolina's going to play 3 games this year. Oh, sorry, next year, 2024. that haven't happened in 15 and 16 years by the time they're played. At Alabama, 2009, the last time they were in T-Town. And then Ole Miss and LSU in Columbia. Ole Miss in 09, 15 years ago. LSU in Columbia 16 years ago in 08. So we got some pretty cool stuff. We'll be able to look back on that, and you can jump in and join us and look at the heartbreak of two of those games and the glory of one that still resonates today, as we all know. Hang tight. Yeah.
Basketball scheduling news.
I saw something.
Gamecocks are playing an Arizona tip-off. It's them and DePaul, and then San Francisco and Grand Canyon. So the Gamecocks could, if they beat DePaul and or they play Grand Canyon, they could end up reuniting with the Clapper, the former Vanderbilt coach. So he's at Grand Canyon. So that's a basketball scheduling nugget right there in the middle of all this. So.
There you go. Ben Portnoy up next, powered by Electric Bikes of Charleston. We'll be right back.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a karaoke partner, I can tell you, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. But what I do have is a very specific set of skills. Hang up now, and your IT nightmares will continue. But stay on the line, and I will find you. And when I find you, I will fix it. Thanks. I think I have the wrong number. I'm trying to call Matt at Heritage Digital. He has a one-price, low-cost turnkey solution for all my IT needs, and I'm sick and tired of my IT guy. So, yeah, 843-699-1001. This is 1002. Oh, well, thanks anyway. Don't be taken by some IT dude that talks a big game. Give Matt at Heritage Digital a call, 843-699-1001.
Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. In-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington. Half-hour, hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter at Mayor Taylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
Hey Gamecock fans, it's Evan Stone from Gamecock Baseball. A couple of painters paint the show garnet and black every day and get the job done right at a fair cost. Go to letmepaintsomething.com for information and an estimate. Go Cox.
You heard Evan Stone, Gamecock fans. 10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. LetMePaintSomething.com.
What's up, Gamecock fans? This is pitcher Noah Hall. If you want some delicious food for your event, I suggest visiting nanasporch.com today to find out what they all have to offer. It's really good Southern cuisine based out of Charlotte, my hometown. I hope you guys go check it out. Go Cox and go Nanas.
Are you looking to buy a new home? Kevin O'Connell with Union Home Mortgage is a local mortgage expert and Gamecocks fan servicing North and South Carolina. Whether you're buying a home, building your dream home with new construction, or turning your equity into cash, UHM's world-class service will ensure you find the perfect mortgage to achieve your home ownership goals. Call Kevin at 803-906-0244 or visit UHM.com today. Union Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS 2229, LONMLS 1772182.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. The home of Ovington, Velotric, Magnum Bikes, and more, they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. Their electric bikes are equipped with 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle, so you can ride longer, handle the heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available for all ages and sizes. Visit electricbikescharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant if you're in the Low Country. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Hey everyone, this is Jack Mahoney from Gamecock Baseball, and inside the Gamecocks, the show is teed up every day by travelingcountryclub.com. So if y'all love golf, make sure you guys go check out their awesome membership options and go Cox.
Welcome to travelingcountryclub.com, your modern golf club experience. Hey folks, this is Michael Manus, former Gamecock golfer, inviting you to play more golf with a membership to travelingcountryclub.com. With over 40 courses across the Carolinas, our membership provides you with an affordable way to enjoy a club-like golf experience. From the mountains to the coast, we offer golf courses that will challenge all types of golfers, no matter your handicap level or level of play. Plus, we offer unique membership benefits not seen anywhere else as part of Traveling Country Club. In July, we're excited to bring to you the 3rd annual Plunder on Pawleys 2-day golf tournament, with rounds played at Caledonia and True Blue golf courses in the heart of Pawleys Island. Head to travelingcountryclub.com to register for that event, and it is not exclusive to TCC members, but to become one, you can sign up and bring to life your golf game. Tee it up with Traveling Country Club, travelingcountryclub.com, travelingcountryclub.com, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
This is Zachary Davis from Carolina Hoops, and you're watching the show with JB, JC, and Phil. Go Cox.
Welcome back, everybody. Inside the Gamecocks show, hour 2, starting off now. See a private message. Okay, good.
Yeah, that's for me. Yeah, we're gonna, as people probably would expect, this Ben is having to do with some to deal with some of the Brad Lawing stuff. So he's gonna be. We're gonna push him back just a few minutes, probably about 10 minutes or so, and then he'll pop in, and we'll get into a lot of what was in his column about the attendance figures. I certainly have some questions because I don't believe it. I was there at every one of those games, and my eyes tell me that the numbers are wrong. But we'll try to figure out where the discrepancy is and what information he came up with, and then certainly go forward there. One of the things, though, that is news is
more news. There's more news.
Yeah.
Curtis Fry is retiring.
What?
Did I miss that?
That tweet just came through 8 minutes ago.
From where?
Track coach. There's some more news.
Oh,
well, you just get Harbor in there, right? I mean, jeez.
Well, hopefully. I mean, so.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's in my email. It just came through 6 minutes ago. So. Okay, effective June 30th, immediately.
Wow,
that's interesting.
I hope that's not health related.
Could be. Probably have to do some digging. Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, so he's got 2 weeks left, and then that's the day before fiscal.
Yeah.
So fiscal begins on July 1. Wow, that is good. Good catch there, JC. National search for replacement will begin immediately, and then this is coming off of one of the probably the best press conference I'd ever seen before, when Nick Harbor signed in February.
South Carolina's got good facilities in track. They're in the SEC. They're in the South. Obviously you inherit Nick Harbor if you come and coach track here. Should be able to get a good one. Very interested to see.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, so don't ask me who a good track coach would be, but it's usually somebody that's coached a lot of Olympians. So we'll see sort of what happens with that. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff just hitting us all at once here, fellas.
Man.
Yeah, it's called a breaking news.
Yeah, Nick's already on campus. He's already
on campus.
I talked to somebody.
Right?
Yeah, I talked to somebody about him today. Doing well, likes it, happy. Those were the words used to describe him. He's.
Wouldn't you assume that this was communicated to him?
I would. But
I would say unless it's health related and it's just an abrupt kind of situation.
Yeah,
he should
had to have been.
Yeah.
But look, man. I mean, I don't know that if it were just about track, I'm not sure that Carolina gets it. I think the track program is good enough. Curtis Fry was good enough, but I think it was the relationship he had with the football staff that put the Gamecocks over the top, and just kind of the fact this is where the kid wanted to go. I mean, Oregon had a great package on the table, but he didn't want to go all the way to Oregon. Of course, neither did Jordan Birch. We're finding out, but so this is where he wanted to go. It's where his parents were comfortable with him going. And he's a young man too, guys, that, his family they're very academically oriented. They're doctors,
Yep.
They sort of would prefer their son to be happy, comfortable, enjoy college, than the hype and the pressure and the get rich now stuff and all that. So don't get me wrong. He's got NIL money coming his way, and probably a lot of it earned because of who he is. But his decision process was a little different than most. And if you notice, man, if you even look at his Final Five, Carolina was the only SEC team, and everybody wanted him.
Yep.
So
no doubt.
Usually, when you look at their Final Five and you kind of explore it and you kind of dig into it, it's kind of like, this guy's kind of got some different things he prioritizes. So, that's the deal.
Well, certainly hats off to Coach Fry, and best of luck in his future. He has 15 days remaining as the track coach at South Carolina. He is stepping down, Craig. He is stepping down if we were breaking up there. One more quick one here, and then do want to get to something from the scheduling side of things before Ben Portnoy. Is there anything to corroborate the rumors that Birch is unhappy at Oregon? I keep hearing it through the grapevine. I would say he's not thrilled, and the future is TBD. And that's all we can really say on it, because there's really nothing else concrete on that.
Yeah, I have my doubts that anything's going to happen with it, but people that have, because if people start rumors, sometimes I'll call them out if it's not true, but I can't call anybody out that repeats that, because there's some truth.
There's some truth in it.
It's been, all that good stuff.
In 2008, LSU came to South Carolina. They will do it again in 2024. The Gamecocks fell that night to the Tigers. Was a good game. Steven Garcia, of course, the quarterback. And one of the things in conjunction with the schedule release yesterday we were able to do is kind of go back and pull some of these 3 games in particular. And this is one of them, guys. And I remember this night well. I don't know if either of you were there. But were you there? That was a night you felt until the fourth quarter like they had a chance to win this thing. Much like one of the ones we're going to look at later on, Alabama, when they were in Tuscaloosa, but it would just be 1 or 2 things a game that would kind of knock them off. And this was one of those nights.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this one. Now that
play there,
you're kind of reviewing it. Yeah, that right there is what kind of set it off for me. But yeah, I remember there being, because this is a big nighttime game, a lot of the hype. It was like, oh, LSU's used to this because they play in, the worst night environment ever. And thought Williams-Brice kind of brought it. It was like, hey, here we're here. We can do this too.
Well, that was that right there. That just there's that referee play on Garcia, and that was right after the Carlos. I mean, it was
fourth quarter they owned it and got a big win. I remember after that interception, my LSU guy, I was working at Rivals at the time. It was just like, LSU has now become a mediocre program. There's a dropped interception that killed them.
But they definitely would have had a shot at a field goal had they scored a touchdown. LSU would have been down a touchdown. Then their score would have just tied the game, Yeah,
it was a disappointing night. I mean, and that 08 team, if you kind of think about how that team ended up and what they really were. I mean, they lost at Vanderbilt. This was one of Stevens' handful of starts that year. It was usually Smelly or Beecher at the beginning. They ended up getting blown out at Florida. They got blown out by Clemson that gave Dabo Swinney that job. That game opened the can. That's a significant game, right? Yep. And then the game against Iowa in the Outback Bowl was atrocious. That was Spurrier's worst team, I thought. But that LSU game and then a game against Tennessee, the game Steven started there in the middle. Remember, he came off the bench at Kentucky and played his butt off and led them to victory and got the job for a couple of weeks. That middle of that season, that team played pretty well, but they and I think LSU was like 7-5 that year too. I mean, they weren't anything special under Les Miles, but that one hurt. I think that one was kind of like that Auburn game in 06, which was the same final score, 24-17. The Gamecocks had a chance to make a statement and played their butts off and just came up a little short. But and that happened a lot in the early Spurrier era.
That's what I was saying. Well, I think that's one of the things that in the Muschamp era and then early in Shane's era that people were like there was some PTSD there because for the most part when Coach Spurrier got here, it was very rare that the Gamecocks were going to go into a game against a nationally ranked opponent and feel like they had no chance. It was a surprise. Like, remember the Auburn game in 05, the Antonio Hefner disaster to start it? Like, things like that were rare. It didn't happen. And you felt like, you mentioned Auburn, that LSU game. Even when they went to Bama in 09, like, you felt like they had a chance. Auburn in 2010, when Cam Newton started making his run to the Heisman Trophy. And they did, usually. And then, like, you fast forward, and people didn't feel like they had a chance as fans of the program in the big games under Coach Muschamp. And then early on in Coach Beamer's tenure in 21, it was like, man, we used to walk into these games with some confidence, and there's just zero confidence in any of these things. And half the time, that was right on cue.
That's back, though, especially at home
now.
at night. At home at night now, it's back. It's not all the way back, but man, you don't have the head ball coach standing on your sidelines. That alone is worth at least 15 confidence points. Because that guy, I mean, his whole career, he would get, he was problematic for I think other coaches were intimidated by him. I think the other coaching staff, they see him over there, they get tight. What's he got up his sleeve? I mean, that first touchdown against Bama in 2010, they threw to Marcus. They worked on that play all week. They'd never seen it. I guess Gary Danielson thought it was a freaking a penalty, but it wasn't because Spurrier would line it up just so. You never, if he told you to go 2.5 yards and you went 3, that was your butt.
Yeah,
because it was all based on right here, 2.5 yards, right? Shoot, that's 3 yards. It's 2.5, right? And so things like that just intimidated people. And then the way he coached his team, which is a lot like Beamer does. Beamer's not a big, like, tight guy. You know what I'm saying? It's go out there, have some fun. You look at his pregame message before Tennessee, where that team had every reason. I mean, other coaches sometimes would have to, we're batting down the hatches this way. Urban Meyer was like that. I remember him before the Carolina game in 2010, where it looked like that pretty sorry Florida team he had would accomplish something if they beat the Gamecocks and get to the Dome. He was like, we're gonna prepare right up until kickoff. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do the hardest we can practice at all. Well, you see what happened. They returned the opening kickoff about the second quarter. They're gassed because they're trying to tackle Marcus Lattimore, and they blew their. I don't want to use the term "blow your load," but they
shot the wad.
Shot the something. Used all your ammo.
That's what these the idioms were originally, is the way you're using them. So
but it's Spurrier was really good at that, like just not putting a lot of pressure on his team.
He never ever put more emphasis on one game than another, ever.
Yeah, and one thing Brad Lawley did pass along to me one time. They said the genius of Steve Spurrier is this. He's like he never puts pressure on his teams to win. It's just go play your best.
Yeah.
Play your best.
Yeah. Let's just go play. Just go play ball, man. Just go play ball. And that's why they generally, always had a chance. And I mean, like, for instance, Ole Miss going to come to Columbia next year. Phil, you can fire that one up while you're at it, I guess. That night, that they were ranked 4th in the country, right? And but that 4th, remember that number 4 ranking, and there was a lot of people who were like, I just don't know. I don't know if I'm buying it, right? Don't know if I'm buying it. Had you not had that type of mentality, and there's a fumble from Steven early in the game, and I thought, oh God.
Was this a Thursday game?
Yeah, that was the Thursday. This was the night of
that's the
Sandstorm.
Thursday. This is Sandstorm. Yeah.
But like, if you didn't approach it that way, that's a game right there that easily could have gotten away from you, because the Gamecock offense really, outside of a couple of plays, wasn't very good. It was the Carolina defense that was really good that night. Remember how, JC, do you remember how hyped up Jevin Sneed was going into that game?
Oh, man. Well, he was good.
Steven. Hey, Steven.
Houston Nutt got him in, right? And added to our boy. Our boy actually recruited this team for Ole Miss. McCluster. I recruited Dexter McCluster. I recruited Kendrick Perkins. I recruited Jarrell Poe.
Big play right there.
I mean, Orgeron did get them a lot of good. He was Hugh Freeze before Hugh Freeze over there. But he just couldn't win. And Houston comes in and he's a winner, if he's got players. And he got Sneed to transfer in. And boy, they were off to a great start. They finished the previous season hotter than any team in the country.
Yeah.
But
that play changed the game right there.
Houston Nutt, as much as he was a Gamecock killer, when he went to Ole Miss, he wasn't. Carolina beat him. Spurrier beat him twice out there with that 08 team. That was another big win that 08 team had out there in Oxford.
There's our boy.
And then, in this one. So
look how young Steve was.
Yeah, his head ball coach here.
We
should beat the Mississippis.
That
Mississippis.
That fake punt changed a lot for Ole Miss in that game. The fake field goal. That fake field goal was, I don't know what they were doing there. I don't know what their thought was. Their defense was playing so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bink in the chat box mentions Greg Hardy being on this team, and we all know we all know his career. I'll tell you what about Greg Hardy. They got him out of Memphis. There's Mo Brown.
Yeah.
Oh no, Mo.
He
Mo
didn't
quite good.
Mo will tell you too. He's like, I didn't have enough gas. I could get down the field and couldn't get to the finish.
Yeah, but he so I rated Hardy was from an inner city school in Memphis, and I look and I see this 6'4" dude, and this is the D line and me coming out, and he's about 215 to play basketball. And I watched his basketball film. Like, this guy, he's going to be 245 pounds and be really good. And I was right. That was one I was right about. So there's Mr. DeMarco.
Well, and that's look at the time. 6:57 left in the game, and Carolina didn't score again. That's how good Ole Miss's defense was. That was the start of their land shark stuff, like the real start of it.
Oh yeah, but they had a lot of talent. I mean, that Ole Miss team. I think they ended up going back to the Cotton Bowl that year, and I think they won it again. They won back-to-back Cotton Bowls. And then the bottom just fell out because a lot of these guys went pro or got suspended and left. And Houston Nutt did not recruit at the level Orgeron or Freeze did. And
turn this up, Phil. See if you can put the volume on that. Can you put the volume on that? This is where it started.
A shoulder. Get you 5 or 6.
That's it. Right? That's where Sandstorm
began. You don't need the whole thing right now.
No towels yet.
This will be your
before towels.
If you're Ole Miss, you need to get some of this yardage back.
Nuts.
Look at them all 40,000.
But give yourself an opportunity.
I was in there. I was somewhere in there.
And the rain breaks out in Columbia.
Yep.
Knows if he can make one more big
God, he could play, couldn't he?
Have the win.
Hey, that's in our intro. And the Rays breaks out in Columbia.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Sneak chase.
Game over.
Cliff, Ingram, Norwood.
Lottie as your boy.
Again lost his helmet.
Those are Brad's guys, man. It's amazing we're watching this today. Those are Norwood.
Sneed fires downfield. Incomplete. Battling for the ball.
Devontae.
Those guys in the secondary back there.
Gamecocks gonna upset them.
I mean, every one of those guys went to the league.
Stephon Gilmore,
Stephon Gilmore, loaded.
They won and they lost to Georgia.
I mean, think about all the NFL guys on that team, man.
A Wrangler 5-star.
I mean, think about it. Think about the offense. Think about there's Pat. 11 years in the league. I think half that offensive
Darren
line
Stewart
went to the
won
league.
a Super Bowl.
And the players are rushing this dude.
You just think, I think that really just kind of emphasizes what you said earlier, JB, is like there would be these like one or two like little mistakes, just ball bounced the wrong way. That, I mean, how close you were to being, a storied program, or to be in the first team to, oust the Big Six from winning the conference championship. We're still waiting.
Yeah.
We're waiting.
Still waiting.
That's the question. Do you think Texas or Oklahoma will be the first one outside of the Big Six teams in the SEC to actually win a conference championship, or do one of us who've been hanging around for a while break through? I don't know. These damn schedules look tough, man.
I'm one who personally thinks it's going to take Texas and Oklahoma. They're not like, I don't think they're going to come into the league and be 5-7. That's not what I'm saying. But I just think that it's going to take them some time to, if they have aspirations of being Bama and Georgia and LSU and things like that, it's going to be a while.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing, too, about these teams, though, that I do want to point out. A&M and Missouri, when they came in, A&M was a 6-6 team. They fired Mike Sherman, brought in someone. Johnny Manziel was fifth team. And that year, A&M, I expected them to be paper soft, right, and play no defense because they were the previous year. Somehow because of the talent they had, they rose to the occasion, and that's been their best year since they've been in the league, except 2020. And then Missouri took their lumps at 5-7 the first year, but then in 13 they had recruited really well in the D line, like they kind of had a Brad Lawing approach, a bunch of under the radar guys, Michael Sam and all those guys. And they took advantage of the East being a little bit down and got on a roll and had a good quarterback. And lo and behold, they won the title. And I didn't see any of that coming. Now, I think A&M and Missouri, though, have different. They had different like cultures in terms of the fact that they're kind of the underdogs. They're not. There's no entitlement at those schools. Maybe at A&M now with NIL, but back then I think they kind of knew, like, look, we better step it up. If you go to Texas or Oklahoma and you're used to kind of, fiddling around in the Big 12 and only getting up for certain games, and you get hit in the mouth week after week. I mean, when you go to Mississippi State and you're like, oh, it's just Mississippi State, and they hit you in the mouth just as hard as Georgia,
right? Yeah, that's the difference.
That's the thing to look for there, is that I think it almost works against bigger name programs to go into a new league. Look at what happened to Miami in the ACC.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's the difference in this league and every other league. It's not, the top is the top. They're elite. I get that. But there's Ohio State's elite. There are obviously years where Clemson has been elite, where Oklahoma has been elite. The difference in the SEC is the blue collar programs. The middle class. Those guys that make up the middle class, they're just better and tougher than everywhere else. It's better than the ACC. It's better than the Big 12. It's better than the Big 10, and it's better than the Pac-12. And I've always been one of the guys, JC, take away the top and take away the bottom. So you can do it one or two. You take away the top two teams or take away the bottom two teams. And where does that leave you? What's the strength of your league? So if you do that in the Big 10, if you do it in the SEC, if you do it in the Pac-12, whatever, take away the top two teams, take away the bottom two teams. What does the middle tell you about the league? And what it tells you generally is that when you take away the top one or two teams in the SEC, that third one probably still going to be in the playoff. These other leagues can't claim that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the middle of the Big Ten, and I say this, but style of play. I'm going to say this about those two Pac-12 teams going into the Big Ten on the opposite end. Wisconsin can't compete with Southern Cal speed-wise, talent-wise, whatever. But you take those boys out of Southern Cal and send them to Madison in late October for kegs and eggs, and everybody's doing jump around, and there's a sea of red, and you're not used to it being 30 degrees, and you're getting your face beat in. That's going to cause them problems too. I don't think anybody in California. This is the California arrogance, right? I don't think anybody out there really thought it through, man. And they're going to be up there freezing. And they can say all they want. Well, it's just like playing Notre Dame. No, No, you play Notre Dame in October, and that's one game every other year. You're not going to Penn State and Michigan in the same season.
Yeah,
you're playing Stanford, and Oregon State.
They got to go to Utah, so I will give them that. It is not warm in Utah.
Yeah, and they get their ass cut at Utah. They got their ass cut at Utah this year, and then they go to Vegas inside now, and they get their ass cut again.
Yeah, that's good.
So
that's a good point.
Like Lincoln Riley, man, they need to get tough. They're recruiting more out of the South now. They need to recruit some Southern boys, but I'd be hitting the Midwest too for some offensive linemen whose last names end in itch, Vitch, or Ski.
Yeah,
those dudes. Yeah, you need to get some guys like Marinovich and Maravich and Rosinski. I mean, those guys, or go to the Midwest, Kansas, and get like Bud Smith.
Yeah,
Bud Smith will whip your butt in the Big
Get
Ten.
him off his tractor.
You can't put it
Put that
together
corn
like
down,
that
boy.
You can't put it together like that in the SEC because it's not cold weather and it's they're going to get out athleted. But that Big Ten situation, man, that's going to get it because that's. I mean, we talk about Texas and Oklahoma coming in for the Big 12. Their cultures are still kind of the same. Their high school football is still great. It's just a matter of them as programs toughening up and getting used to the grind. Southern Cal and UCLA, how the hell do you get used to that? You can't even simulate it in practice. Purdue can simulate it. Wisconsin can simulate it. Nebraska can simulate it. How are you going to sit out there in Malibu, 75-degree weather with beautiful babies walking around everywhere? You're wearing shorts. And you got to go to Minnesota. I don't even think any of those fools out there in California realize Minnesota has an outdoor stadium now.
Yep.
You do realize they don't play in the Metrodome anymore, sir.
The
don't you?
Gopher Dome is gone. Yeah.
Go.
It's 12:30. We got to hit a timeout. Hang tight. Teed up by travelingcountryclub.com. Inside the Gamecocks, the show. We'll be right back.
If you're in the upstate of South Carolina and are in need of residential real estate services, Cindy Bass Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane is for you. Ask her about the village at Creekside, all of her listings in my hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina, right there on Daniel Morgan Avenue, married to a lifelong Gamecock fan. And many of our listeners have already bought homes from her and been 100% satisfied with the detail and care she uses. Cindy Searfoss, 864-414-5271, Caldwell Banker Kane in the upstate for your real estate needs.
Coach O here, and when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight out the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning, it'll melt in your mouth, it's good on a cracker, it's good in a bowl, it's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer, go Tiger.
The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks.
Hey man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey, JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. Magnum, Velotric, Aventon bikes, and more. And they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle help you handle the southern heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available all ages and sizes. ElectricBikesCharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Bikes on Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Bikes on Charleston!
Program, like Carolina Rise. I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is to get involved with these programs, because that goes straight to our student athletes. It goes straight to recruiting. It helps tremendously on multiple levels. And I know that it's one of those things you sometimes don't necessarily get to see it or feel it right away, but you will feel it in a negative way if you're not involved on the front end.
Carolina Rise has been a huge impact in our program. If you don't have good players, you don't compete, bottom line. And these days, as you mentioned, the 11.7 scholarships is not near enough for what baseball players deserve. We have 35 players, only 27 of which can get scholarships. And we have 11.7 scholarships to divide up among those 27 guys. So you're talking about the average player on our team is paying half his way to come here. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. And, the NIL market has allowed us to help kids afford to come here. It's helped kids to want to stay here. There are guys on our team that would not be here probably without the NIL. And Carolina Rise has been a huge part of that. You look at, we had 3 draft picks last year that decided to come back to South Carolina. I don't know that happens without the NIL. We appreciate Carolina Rise very much, and everybody that's helping to facilitate that and help our players is a big part of what we're doing now and what we'll do moving forward.
Yeah, it certainly, guys, looked like more than the 60,000 or whatever they said that was reported the other day for the attendance, right?
I don't know. It's so
that last
silly.
one there was a clip from the Tennessee game.
Yeah, that was Tennessee. Yeah.
Seems like
where, if I recall, there were a couple of little empty spots up in the corner of the upper, but beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I mean, if he's trying to point a finger at the issue of, well, you sell this many tickets, give this many tickets away, so therefore that's your gate. I mean, that's nothing new in the world of sports accounting. I mean, the professionals have been doing. I mean, ask Major League Baseball how they've been, determining attendance for all these years. Oh yeah, 40,000 people in the stands on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. and there's obviously 6,000 people there, if that. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think we lost the stream, fellas.
I see where some people are still having,
really?
but they're still commenting. So it was
mine's on.
Yeah, and then I'm live.
I don't think that was.
I'm fine. I don't see anything. I just
yeah.
I would say if
let us know if it's back. Keith says
it should be
back,
back.
so it's
yeah,
back. Yeah, and look, with this lawing thing, Keith and Chris especially, I feel especially bad for those guys because they had a really good personal relationship with that guy. Keith's known Lawing since Lawing was there before, and we all lost somebody that we respected in the coaching community and a great Gamecock. So some people lost friends and a dad or a husband.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to let everybody out there know that, I'm thinking about you.
Yep, no doubt.
Yeah,
There's no doubt. Yeah, Brad was absolutely sensational. So he will be missed. There's no doubt, and I'll be anxious to see what Shane and the University of South Carolina come up with to honor him. They'll figure out a way to do that. I'm sure something within the facility or whatever it will be. But man, one of the going back to what we said earlier, he was just real, and you don't that like what Chris mentioned earlier about how he likes Shane. Talking about Brad Lawing, I've heard that too, and Pat mentioned that to me one time that he knew Coach Lawing's been by the facility a couple of times, has a lot of respect for Shane and what he's attempting to do. But I think though there's a reason for that because they're both real. You hear Shane say this all the time, right? Like when people, why are you recruiting so well? And he says, well, we get these words like authentic and real. Like they feel like when they ask us a question, we give them an answer, regardless of what former coaches' dads want to say on Twitter without releasing the other 9 minutes of the conversation. So, but that was Brad. I mean, I'm not like Keith or somebody like that who's had known the guy, call him a friend. Like, it's not like that. But you didn't have to be like that to understand that he was real. I mean, anytime you ever saw him speak, he spoke. There was no sly language. There was no, beat around the bush. You asked him a question, you got an answer. If you were a recruit and you asked him a question, you got an answer. Jadeveon Clowney even said multiple times, he didn't, as a matter of fact, he pushed me harder. Like he didn't just let me come in and play defensive end at South Carolina and do what I wanted to do because I was a star and I was the number one player in the country. He made me earn it. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney was probably promised a starting position at every school in college football, including Clemson, Georgia, and Alabama. And Brad Lawing said, you ain't walking in here and starting. You got to earn it. And he didn't start, did he, guys? For a long time. It took him, and we didn't get it. We didn't understand that. JC, you probably did. You were covering it. I didn't. I'm sitting here thinking, why is this guy not starting? He's the best player.
The number one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, because Melvin Ingram and Devin Taylor were starting.
Right.
Yeah,
they were. But everybody else, I'm just saying, had he gone anywhere else, they were going to plug him right in, period. And Brad was not going to do that.
The thing about Jadeveon and his mom, they didn't want to be coddled. And that's largely why Alabama and South Carolina were the final two. Clemson got him on campus, and as they do, Dabo worked his magic, and there was maybe some more consideration given to them toward the end than people may have thought. But they were never seriously going to get him, and Alabama had kind of been left in the dust. And the reason was, and Brad did a good job of this too, so did Ellis, and so did Lorenzo Ward, explaining to him, hey, and we've seen this play out in the NFL, guys, with how the Texans sort of misused him. You are not a 3-4 jack linebacker in Alabama's defense. You are a hand in the dirt, elite edge rusher. That when he wanted to play the run, boy, he could play the run too.
With great run upside. Yeah.
We saw that firsthand, and he's actually pretty good at playing the run in the NFL these days. But that's the Clowney. What I really admired about him as a recruit, and all these guys really that came through during that era, they weren't necessarily hype guys. They did their talking on the field, and they wanted to be coached. And they wanted to play for a guy like Spurrier. They want to be coached hard. And so, Brad did a great job emphasizing that and outlining a plan. And, sometimes like coaches will give you a plan, and then you get there and things are different, right? It's smoke. You blow smoke. I know one defensive line coach that's at a school that got a transfer from South Carolina this offseason. It's on the West Coast. That it kind of works that way at that position. But Brad did exactly what he said he was going to do for Clowney. And look at what happened. The guy turned into the number one pick. And look at what happened when Brad left. to Clowney's production too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With Deke didn't know what to do with him. I mean, he
Look
just
what
didn't
happened to
know
the whole
what to do.
defense. Yeah, Lorenzo Ward's best defenses were when Brad was calling the front because Lorenzo was a secondary guy, and those two working together almost should have been co-coordinators, to be honest. But things happen.
It is 12:43. Finally, Ben Portnoy has wrapped up with what he has had to deal with, which is what we're talking about. Brad Lawing's passing. There is a column up on that on the state newspaper, and so people can check that out. So we still have a break to get to, Phil. We got one final quick one.
One final quick one.
Yeah, so let's hit the final break. When we get back, Ben Portnoy will be here on his column from a couple of days ago. Folks upset about it. And we'll let him explain it on Inside the Gamecocks, this show powered by Electric Bites of Charleston and built by the Barn Co.
New home. Kevin O'Connell with Union Home Mortgage is a local mortgage expert and Gamecocks fan servicing North and South Carolina. Whether you're buying a home, building your dream home with new construction, or turning your equity into cash, UHM's world-class service will ensure you find the perfect mortgage to achieve your home ownership goals. Call Kevin at 803-906-0244 or visit UHM.com today. Union Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS 2229, LONMLS 1772182.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does the Barn Company, where they can build your dream home starting as low as $160 per square foot. If you live in the Carolinas, Georgia, or Tennessee, their turnkey process takes just 4 to 6 months on average and can be custom designed by size and details. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Barn Company, Gamecock, owned and operated.
What's up, Gamecock fans? This is Ethan Petrie from Land O'Lakes, Florida, and you are listening to the show with JB, JC, and Phil. Go Cox.
Oh, deep drive to left. Morgan looks up, and it is gone.
The 0-2 is sent to center, and this one is going to be long.
The Signorama Studios, the preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics, sure are going to miss baseball season. Let me give John Whittle some credit. Make sure you check out his note from the transfer portal last night. I can just corroborate what he's saying. I want to be fair because John first reported it, as John does. But pretty similar intel on this side that South Carolina is heavily in the mix to add a star freshman, one of many star freshmen in the SEC this year. So check out John's reporting on that at thebigspur.com. All right, final segment again. Ben Portnoy is kind enough to give us some of his time. He was set to join us at the top of the hour, but covering camp today at Williams-Brice Stadium, and then that colliding with the tragic news of the passing of Brad Lawing. Ben has had some catching up to do over the last 45 minutes or so, but he is still going to give us a little bit of his time, and we're happy he's doing it. What's up, man? How are you?
What's going on, guys? Sorry for that. Obviously a crazy day, and thoughts out to Brad's family and those affected by that, and appreciate you guys being flexible and still being able to sneak me in.
No, we appreciate it. There's been a lot of news in Gamecock land today that is floating out by the second, it seems. JC mentioned earlier there's some hoops news with future scheduling in November and for a tournament. We just got the news that in 2 weeks, all of a sudden Curtis Fry is retiring as the legendary track coach. We've got the Brad Lawing news going on. Oh, yeah. And then there was this whole schedule release thing that happened last night. So there's nothing to write about, more than likely.
Yeah, you get to the summer, and you guys could all kind of attest, you get to the summer and you think that things will slow down for like 4 seconds, and then, all hell breaks loose and there's 47 other things to deal with. So it's part of the fun, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to this here because you're catching some heat because of your column a couple of days ago on the attendance, the fan attendance in South Carolina. All right, Ben. So 2022 was pretty much widely regarded as a resurgence of sorts at Williams-Brice. There had been some lean years. Obviously, COVID was in there. But as far as packing the place out consistently like it used to, having a lot of night games and those type things, it had gotten stale at the end of the Muschamp era. And Shane comes in, and he's really trying to urge folks to get out there and watch the ball games and this, that, and the other. I was there every game except for South Carolina State, and it sure looked packed. But when I read your column the other day, and I know the numbers have been updated, there seems to be a discrepancy. So my question is what is the difference between actual attendance, tickets sold, and tickets scanned?
Yeah, so it's a super interesting conversation, and I think you're right. Like, anecdotally, I agree with you, right? Like, you show up at Williams-Brice Stadium the last 2 years, like, it was a packed house most of those nights, or at least felt like it, right? And I think that's sort of the interesting thing when you see attendance numbers and sort of how these things are calculated and what goes into it. So the super basic breakdown is that, the attendance number that you see, right? South Carolina's gonna tote a sellout, or whether that's whatever that entails, generally is somewhere around 75,000, give or take. What that means is when you count attendance, and this isn't unique to South Carolina, and that's another point to make here, is that basically the way that attendance is calculated both at South Carolina, at functionally every other school in America, is that includes patrons, it includes fans, it includes people who are working as volunteers, ushers, the teams, everyone. I mean, it is like literally everyone. So that's one thing. Scanned seats and scanned tickets, as far as who's in the stands, who's in the seats, is a different thing. And I think that's where there's like generally a really big discrepancy, and it existed here, right? In the documents that we looked at is, I think that South Carolina's, generally speaking, average attendance for those games that it announced as sellouts was 75,000 or a little bit over that. The number of scanned tickets, now that's between regular patrons, that's students, that's people who like have a ticket stub, are scanning it, going through the turnstile, was closer to, I believe it was 52,000. So it's, 55,000, whatever it was. So it's about a 20,000 person, quote unquote, discrepancy. Now, again, that's fairly standard. That's generally speaking how this is calculated everywhere. It doesn't mean that there weren't people in the stands, I would clarify. And obviously there were a lot. So I think it's sort of this funny nuance of what's promoted, what's the actual attendance, as far as, or maybe not attendance, what's the actual number of sort of butts in seats is maybe the best way to describe it. And then sort of what does that look like as far as how South Carolina is dealing with it. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's definitely been a resurgence, and there's still, the expectation that attendance or that there are more people going to games for sure.
Yeah. So let's be clear on this too, because you covered every single game with the state newspaper. Mm-hmm. You sat in the press box using your eyeballs. I'm not trying to paint you in a corner here. I'm just trying to make sure that we explain this well. You're talking about ticket scan, but using your eyeballs, in your opinion, in all those, with the exception of the SC State game, moved to a Thursday night in bad weather because of the hurricane, and all of those other home games, just hey, I'm in the stands. I'm telling you right now. Was it closer to a sellout, or was it closer to the actual number of scanned tickets, somewhere in the 50,000 range?
Anecdotally, I don't know. I think it depends. I think there are games where you look at, and certainly there's like corners of the stadium, whether that's sort of generally speaking, in the upper deck, in the corners, that's spots where I think that like there's some empty seats here and there. But I would say that like definitely, like, you look around the stadium, you look at the lower bowl, like that part of the stadium is generally always filled, or for the most part was filled. Now, how that's calculated, that's, an internal thing. And again, goes into however South Carolina does that. But when you look at just the data that we have and in front of us and that we were given and all of that through our public records requesting and all of that, those are the numbers that came out. So it's, again, like, I think it's a funny nuance of how these things are calculated and what sort of, and I think probably a lot of the ire, frankly, comes from the question of, okay, you say there's 75,000 people at the stadium, or there's an average attendance of whatever, 75,000 seats, people in the stadium, but in reality, whatever that is, the actual number of tickets scanned, which is kind of the best way to describe like how many people are actually sitting in a seat, is obviously a lot lower. Now, again, like that nuance exists everywhere. It's not unique to South Carolina. It's just like part of the equation.
So
do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so you remember the 20,000 number that they got from the spring game a couple of years ago, and everybody was kind of up in arms about it when there were clearly more people than that there.
Yep.
That was the scan number too, and I kind of questioned, because there's some Gamecock Club members that scan their tickets and it doesn't update on the app. I mean, I kind of question sometimes maybe are there some technical issues where that data is maybe not reported as well. I mean, Phil mentioned maybe going back to turnstiles, and I, because I've been going to get the games there my whole life. I got a good eyeball as to like what it looks like.
Yep.
But obviously, Ben, there is there's a big discrepancy between the actual data that's reported in terms of scanned tickets and the seats that are filled, unless they're like fake people. Remember the fake people during COVID? And I hadn't been to a home game since Kentucky in 2021, but could that be a possibility? Is this maybe a technical glitch? But and maybe it's a technical glitch everywhere. I don't know, but I was just trying to kind of figure out how in the world there is that big of a discrepancy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, it's conceivable that there is sort of like the user error or whatever, whatever we used to call it in science class, right? I mean, I was a journalism major for a reason, so I can't get into it too deep. But, I do think that, I do think that there is some of that, I'm sure. I mean, certainly those things probably exist. I mean, the data that we looked at is what was in there, but I think that, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. I think, again, like where you get a lot of the discrepancy too is, right, like, let's say you're counting all of the teams and all of the staffers and everything, like that pretty easily adds up to a couple hundred, if not, however many people, and it goes into that, et cetera. And so I think that like when you do add all of those things up, certainly those numbers maybe go up between staffers and crews and everything else. Now, is it 20,000 people different? I don't know. No. I mean, I can't, like that, I can't tell you, but I do think like, again, like I think this is the interesting thing about and I think was kind of the interesting thing about this story was just that like attendance is sort of this thing that's, again, not just at South Carolina, is sort of said to be this when like actuality, number of tickets, whatever, like is a little bit different. And I think it's just a very interesting dynamic. And then you tie in, I think, a lot of the other parts of the story, just as far as like, how does that affect luxury seating and not trying to price people out? And, how are season ticket sales going? How is, and a lot of the folks that I talked to for the story, right, mentioned how folks are going more for single game tickets versus season tickets. So that's part of it. And it's just kind of it's an interesting dynamic. And I think that, again, like the thing that also to remember with attendance, and I think sort of those numbers that we get as far as a sellout too, right? Like those numbers are coming from, first of all, everyone, like I said, including everyone who's in the stands and et cetera. But it's also including every single ticket being sold. Now, whether that's to scalpers, whether that's to season ticket holders, whether that's to someone who, ends up having a tummy ache the day of the game and can't come, like, again, like that's sort of the nuance of it too there with sort of how many tickets are sold versus how many people are actually showing up. And like you guys said, I mean, obviously the stadium had great crowds and certainly agreed with that. But it's definitely an interesting conversation.
Yeah, there's just not that much discrepancy, the eyeball test wise. I mean, that's the weird thing. Now, I will say, I talked to somebody, after 2021, and they said there is a discrepancy between scanned tickets and actual attendance. But it looked like this past year, with the exception of South Carolina State, which is a reschedule, that there were more. I was kind of, I mean, you mentioned recruits and everybody like that. That's a drop in the bucket compared to 20,000 people. Just to me, just eyeballing it. So I don't know what the deal is, but it certainly is interesting.
Definitely. And I think it ties into the other question of too, like you tie into the, right, like the luxury seating side of it. And I remember, spoke with Stephen Shapiro from South Carolina's, hospitality school, and a school of hospitality management and everything. And, he's an expert on this stuff. And he was talking about the idea of how do you balance like shrinking stadium sizes versus filling seats. And is it better to have basically 100,000 seat stadium with 70,000 people in it, or a 50,000 seat stadium with everyone in it? And it's this thing that I think that's like getting figured out. And I mean, I'm sure we could talk about it, as far as like stadium renovations that can come down the line with sort of the things that are being proposed around the stadium and how do those things tie in. And I think it's like this whole conversation about attendance and how many people are showing up and sort of the finicky nature of all of it is it's definitely not going away, at least.
No, it wouldn't. It's different everywhere. I mean, it really is. I mean, you look at Nebraska and Penn State and teams like that, and they just have zero problems putting 90,000, 100,000 people in their ballparks. And then there's some that seat 70,000 and 80,000. And, obviously South Carolina has taken the approaches you've talked about. They're going to more premium seating. There's stuff on the way that we all are well aware of. Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. Like, I've been in that ballpark for, well over 30 years, 7 times a season. And I know what it looks like when it's 80,000 versus when it's 60,000. And, you're using the data that was given to you, and that's what goes into the column. I'm trying to figure out where they're getting that data from. I'm talking about the university here, because I know, I am a Gamecock Club member, Ben, but for the purpose of the conversation, I can go into my account, and when I scan our tickets into the game, I could go back in there and look, and it shows that I never scanned them into the game. And I have no idea why that is when I do it digitally. So it's really strange. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, I feel like there's something missing. Cause we just showed one of our bumpers here as a clip at the end of the Tennessee game last year where nobody had left. And there is easily 70-something thousand people in that ballpark, easily. And they're telling that, I know your numbers were updated, but I think the latest I saw, Ben, was like 61,000 scanned tickets. So we clearly know it was well more than that.
Yeah, I think scanned tickets is not, I don't think that is necessarily actual attendance. I guess that's my point of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel differently, but I would not base I think scanned tickets is probably a different category. I don't know why there's a discrepancy, but that's just me.
Let me ask you. I know we're past time here. We got to. So we'll give you a couple of minutes. We'll let you run. What was the? I'm asking this in a good way, just so you know, not a bad way. What was the purpose of the column for us to see the data of scanned tickets? Like, what do you want readers in the audience to understand by virtue of writing about it?
Yeah, I think I think that this attendance thing is a piece of what this story turned into, right? Like, obviously I mentioned season ticket sales are projected to go up and have been going up, right? I think that sort of the balance of luxury seating and what that means as far as what could be down the line for Williams-Brice and how that matters as far as putting butts in seats versus pricing people out and that kind of thing. But I think that the crux of this story, I think, frankly, was that it's just a way to illustrate kind of what does a sellout actually mean, and what does a quote unquote sellout mean, and what is what does that mean as far as how many people are actually sitting in the stands. And I think generally speaking, I think that scanned tickets, I would push back a little bit, just saying that I think that's generally sort of the understanding of what I think that is generally the best way to best assess, or maybe the closest way to assess how many people are actually sitting in a seat. Now, obviously, again, these things are finicky, and there's certainly, I can't tell you how exactly South Carolina is compiling their data internally. I have the data that they gave me, but I can't tell you how that number is getting to that number. But I do think that that's sort of just a way to illustrate all of these things are kind of correlated. And I think that, again, things are on the up and up. I think that, Shane Beamer has brought a lot of excitement, all of that. But I think it's showing in that. But I think there's also a lot of subtleties to the whole conversation as well that tie into it. At least that was kind of the explanation of how this all works and why it all kind of correlates.
Certainly has brought some fire to the fan base. That's what journalism does, as you well know. You've been doing it a long time. Before we let you run here, thoughts on South Carolina's schedule and anything that stuck out to you in the league, the 24 schedule. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, at least with South Carolina, I don't know about y'all, but I'm really excited for the South Carolina-Oklahoma game. I think that's going to be really fun. I think that you get Shane Beamer against Oklahoma and sort of the obvious storylines, getting to go against presumably Brent Venables, barring anything crazy. There's going to be
never know.
Right, I was going to say, it's hard to say this day and age in college football, right? It's hard to project 20 minutes down the line, let alone 2 years. But I do think that's going to be a really, really fun matchup. And then the flip side of it, I'm really interested and sort of amazed that none of Florida, Georgia, or Tennessee ended up on this schedule. I thought at least probably 2 of those 3 were guaranteed to be on the schedule, if not all 3. And that was a little bit surprising, but definitely some interesting things. I think, South Carolina probably should feel pretty good about where it landed. I think the SEC did a pretty good job. I know we give the SEC a lot of hell about this stuff all the time, but I think generally speaking across the board that they did a pretty good job of building a balanced schedule, South Carolina and everyone else. And I think there's going to be some really fun matchups. So it's going to be interesting. And, Georgia's still not going to Kyle Field, which is a whole fun other discussion we could talk about for hours. But
have they never been there?
Fun thing. Georgia's never been to College Station, right? Isn't that the thing that's in the 12 years?
Yeah, that didn't happen this year either. So that was wow. It seemed like with Carolina, they tried to put some games that hadn't happened in a while, and that Georgia A&M game remains elusive.
That's crazy. Well, it won't be for long. I mean, probably the next
year. They played in the Independence Bowl a few years back. Georgia beat them pretty
I was going to say, whoever was putting these together must have had a sense of humor, deciding not to put A&M and send Georgia to A&M. But it makes for fun off-season conversation, that's for sure.
Hey, you worked in Louisiana. That Independence Bowl means something up there, right?
That's right.
Shreveport, baby.
Shreveport. Well, man, hey, I know you're covering camp and you're out there in the thick of it. But we really do appreciate you making time for us, and especially on the heels of just the awful news of Brad Lawling. I'm not sure if you ever got to spend much time around him, but he was a pretty good dude.
Definitely sad news and sad for a lot of Gamecocks fans and all of that, and definitely sending prayers to his family and everything else, and thinking of them. But appreciate you guys having me. This was fun. Glad we got to do it.
Thank you so much, man. Have a wonderful week, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys.
There you go. Ben Portnoy with the state newspaper, and certainly wanted to ask you about that. That data, I think thanks, Phil. I would be interested to hear a deeper dive on how the university gets that data, because that's the data that was provided to him. Obviously, somebody there's got to be able to answer the question of how are you saying there were 61,000 people here for the Tennessee game, but there was really closer to 80.
Where are those man? Unless,
why not ask the university? Why leave it as a question? Yeah, why leave it as a question mark and print it as an article? That's my.
I'll say this
I didn't
too.
want to come at him. I'm like, but hey,
I know we got to go. Yeah, I appreciate it. We didn't have enough time to really get into a debate about it, but I'll say this: there are going to be less seats at Williams-Brice in the near future. But there are going to be less seats everywhere in the country in the near future. Do I think the discrepancy is that dramatic? Hell no, I don't. I think the data I think common sense would tell you that. Not that Ben doesn't have common sense. He's writing a story and he's got his angle. But I would just be blown away if that was actual. I mean, how big are the seats then? In South Carolina, do we have Tennessee-style seating? Where a 140-year-old man is too fat to fly?
Yeah, I mean again,
you ever sat at Neyland Stadium? That's how it is. I mean, I have to stand
awful.
up.
It's awful.
But I've been going to games there my whole life. I've never thought that about South Carolina ever. No, so there has to be a logical explanation.
Yeah, the question is, where is the discrepancy? Because I know what my eyes see. Mm-hmm. And to Ben's credit here, he's reporting the numbers given to him by the university.
Yeah, I would disagree with him completely that scan tickets, based on what you see with your eyes in reality, that scan tickets are the best way to determine. That's the line where I would draw the line. I just think that's
not
reality.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm saying I would be asking the question to South Carolina of, okay, because the numbers were updated, right? They gave, which is strange. Again, strange. The university gave him information. He reported the information, and then they come back and they change the information. So it's not, in my opinion, my questions would be, well, how did this change from when you first gave it to me to now? And number two,
how are you reporting 78,000 people in there for this game, and this game, but scan tickets is showing this? Like, where's the discrepancy? Because obviously, there is.
And I don't think scan tickets are the best way to determine actual attendance. That's he thinks that, and I think this, and we all think that. We agree. I think it could be incompetent scanners too. Look, folks, it's hard to get help these days, right? And unless you're in a sexy business like ours.
I think there's a digital issue at South Carolina. That's what I think. Because I'm telling you right now,
I think something there's malfunctioning.
In my account personally, and my family has total 16 tickets, but me personally, I have 4. And it shows that I was scanned into so 28 tickets in 7 games. It shows that 7 tickets were scanned last year in 7 games, and that ain't right.
Well, there's
so you didn't
answer.
Attend all those games you said you did,
right? Exactly. And every seat was full.
Like some schools have a credit system, and they'll bump your seats if you don't show up. You get points for showing up, and if you're not getting your points, your seats all of a sudden are less.
Yeah.
The next year because they didn't think you were there. I mean, somebody's got to fix this. Okay. I mean, and it may be that the stadium downsizes anyway. They get a new system or whatever. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just the only thing I have an issue with that article is it sounds like to me Ben believes, and he pushed back, so that's fine. Ben believes that the best way to determine it's through this scan system. And those of us that have kind of been around a while go, well, that they're not giving away 20,000 tickets a game, right? They're not comping 20,000 people are not marching in with the other team's band and the cheerleaders.
No, there's not that many volunteers either, or people like staff members.
Yeah,
I mean, he kind of insinuated that volunteers and staff were being included in total count. But I mean, the number of seats
because there's not that many empty seats.
Yeah, exactly.
The beer guy is not sitting in the stands watching the game.
No,
like I said, unless there's fake people like during COVID.
No, and here's the other side of it is that here we are on primetime TV, multiple times this year with a packed house, whether it be literal or figurative. You're making this impression on recruits and all of that, which is the most important thing about all of this really is, the relevance and respect for your program. If it's coming across on TV, why even make an issue of it up because the numbers happen to don't match, but from 2 sets of data that you happen to have acquired for whatever reason from the university, and not gear the article towards and trying to answer the question, why is there a discrepancy between this and this, and then turning it into, I don't know. It was kind of all over the place. It was about the data. It was about the luxury seating. It was about reducing the number of seats. It was about so many different things. All the while, we're following Shane Beamer at the Aiken Gamecock Club meeting. I don't know. I didn't get it.
Well, that was the thing to me. There's a fundamental difference of opinion, and I think the facts would be on our side. But look, man, we appreciate having Ben come on and explain himself.
Absolutely. Let's hear it. I told him that. I said, hey, we're going to press you on this a little bit. So I asked the question, what did your eyes tell you, and what's the purpose of writing the column?
Tupac said, I ain't mad at you.
And Ben, first of all, Ben's a super nice guy. He's a really good guy, and he's a big boy. He's been doing this a long time. He can handle. That's the point of. That's what you have journalism on, to be able to have these journalists on, to be able to have these type of discussions, and not everything is just the opinion of some guy.
One day we'll have Gene Sapakoff on.
Absolutely. I've had Gene on my shows for 10 years. I mean, I have no problem with these.
I will have an interesting conversation.
I'm all for that. And these guys are all for that. Gene goes on the Feinbaum show, and this show ain't gonna scare him.
I don't like to blast people. I mean, I did that one time, but during my career when I was with Corey, and I blasted poor Lisa. And she just wrote something that was garbage and didn't know what she was talking about. And I just kind of went at her with that. And I mean, I'm a little more friendly, like with that. And I understand if you're not a lifelong lifer around here, and you've seen huge crowds your whole life, and you sort of know what a huge crowd at Williams-Brice looks like. I think maybe there's a ticket scan company out there that's got contracts with everybody that's screwing people. Because Ben said it was like this everywhere. So maybe there's some charlatans out there selling scanners.
Yeah, I'm just it's confusing. It doesn't make sense. I mean, they reported the university did last year. This isn't, Ben's reporting the numbers that are given to him. So, they reported there was just over 40,000 season tickets sold. And then you've got students, which I think is, what is it, JC, 10,000 a game?
Now, I'll agree in 2021, it was lacking. I mean, I agree. 2021 is different than 2020. 2021, I was like, damn, are they ever going to come back?
Yeah.
But
so what we're getting here is that Georgia State had 63,199 total tickets scanned, and that's 2,000 more than Georgia. I'm sorry, not 2,000. That's unfair. That's 1,200 more than Georgia, and that's also about 2,000 more than Tennessee. That doesn't make any sense. That's 3,000 more than Texas A&M. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I know that Georgia State was a night game, first game of the year. People were all fired up and this, that, and the other, but the numbers don't make sense.
The A&M crowd was much bigger. I thought it was much more full than Georgia State. But anyway, we've gone overtime, boys.
Yeah, we did.
Took it to OT.
That's
we
right.
Sure did.
Extra time.
All the guys asking questions about Nick Harbor leaving. Nobody's talked to Nick Harbor, but JC, I'll let you round this out. I just because the track coach is retiring, you can never say never to anything in life, but
he ain't gonna. He just
don't worry about it. I mean, yeah. Ball's a bigger draw than track for him here. Yeah.
He would not have picked South Carolina. It was a football decision.
Yeah, if he were a track guy, he'd be in Oregon, right? I mean, that's my thoughts.
Oregon or Miami, someplace like that. But
I know people have been asking
I think Harbor will be fine. Now look, spread the word about Carolina Rise.
Yeah,
because there is NIL money that will have to be that he'll have to get, but certainly wasn't as much as what Oregon.
It's not talking season; it's giving season.
Yeah, it's giving season. You need to give. Give.
This summer.
Hallelujah.
For every day the sun's out, you owe us $10.
That's taken, JB. That's not given.
You're taking my sunshine away.
That's taken.
Anyway.
This, that, and the other. Thanks to Ben and Chris. RIP to Brad Lawing, and thoughts and prayers certainly with his family. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Mason Love, the new punter, the new commitment, who is a punter. He's one of 3 new commitments. We can't report on who the other 2 are, but soon. But he'll be joining us. Can't wait for that. And then we also plan to have Stuart Lake in tomorrow to wrap baseball season. And so it's going to be another fun day around here. For Phil and JC, I am JB. Thanks to all of you. Have a thirsty Thursday afternoon. Thanks to the bourbon for making me wake up late this morning. And we'll see you tomorrow at 11 on Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barn Dough Co.